If you can please open up the chat, see if you can find the chat and open it up and put your name and your affiliation in there. Yeah. Excellent. Since we're not all together and we can't see each other in this program, it's nice to at least sort of know who's here. And you can say hi to each other if you'd like. Hi, Ken. It's always nice to see you via Zoom. Welcome, everybody. I'm Liz Paul. I'm the Boise River Enhancement Network Coordinator. Just saying hi to everybody today. Oh, hi, John. Excellent. Friends from Fish and Game, City of Caldwell coming in, City of Boise. There's Tammy, one of our newer members on the board of the Lower Boise Watershed Council. DQ, hi, Ralph, another illustrious board member from the Lower Boise Watershed Council. We'll let everybody get in and say hi, and then we'll start our program. As I said a few minutes ago, this is being recorded, and this program and all of our other wonderful programs are on the Bren YouTube channel. And if you just go to YouTube and look for Bren or look for Bren YouTube, you'll find it. And we encourage people to look at those programs. There's some really great ones. They're all great ones. And they can be used for classroom presentations or used a lot of ways. They cover a lot of different issues. So welcome everybody who's just coming. If you could introduce yourself in the chat, that's makes it a little bit more friendly. Great, and then keep your video and your audio off during the program. It is being recorded, but you could also use the chat at any time if you are having issues with the hearing or seeing or anything else that we need to know about. Or if you have questions of any sort at all, feel free to put those up in the chat. All right, well, I'm really happy to have everybody coming today to our program, Farmers Clean Up the Boise River. And I'm going to turn it over to Kathy Peter, who's going to be our host for today. Take it away, Kathy.
Hi, welcome to our lunchtime talk. Bren, as you know, is a network, and we rely on presentations such as this, as well as projects and volunteer activities to build the relationships that sustain that network. So thank you for participating in this event. And it will be available online as a recording. So if you want to pick up any of the details later, you'll have a chance to see that. And you also will have a chance to share it with folks who couldn't make it today. Next slide. There we go. We have a upcoming program. It's going to be in the evening this time with Clive Strong. Clive is formerly with the Attorney General's office and is very well known within the environmental community here in Idaho. And he'll be speaking on the Boise River and the public trust doctrine. So I hope you can join us for that. We do need to have you register ahead of time. So if you monitor emails, you'll pick up that link, or if you just go to the Boise River Enhancement online site and look at upcoming events, you can also register there. We also have a volunteer event for picking up trash. And this is the time of year we all kind of do our spring cleaning around here. We're going to be down in Star and Caldwell doing some work, and it's a family-friendly event. So if you're tired of being inside, and bring your mask. I think garbage bags will probably be provided at the site. you've never done one of these, it really is a fun family thing to do, or get a bunch of friends together. So hopefully June 26th, it'll be pretty warm by then. Hope you can join us. And keep an eye on your email. There's other voluntary activities pop up periodically. So again, it's a way we build relationships as well as doing a really good thing for the river. And let's see, I'll hand this off to Adam.
Thanks, Kathy.
Yes.
And so just building off of what Kathy was talking about of volunteer opportunities, the Boise River Enhancement Network in general supports having a healthy river, and you can help support the Boise River also by becoming a friend of Bren in general, just by signing up as a member, and you'll get more information and build our broad general support and become part of our network that coordinates and has a lot of resources within it. And Bren is a nonprofit organization. We're participating in Idaho Gives, and our goal this year is to raise $5,000. And so please feel free to provide us a donation to help get our support up to that threshold and up to that level. But beyond the donation request, really, we also want to encourage people to get out there and go explore the Boise River and what it all has to offer. So I'm going to go ahead and post a link to our webpage that is our donation page. And so if you'd like to donate today, that will be available as well, or at any time, really. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Ashley Newbury, who is with the Lower Boise Watershed Council. So thank you.
Hi guys, I'm Ashley, and let's see, I work for the City of Caldwell Engineering Department, and I presently serve as the Vice Chair of the Lower Boise Watershed Council. We're a watershed advisory group, or WAG, on the Lower Boise River. We take on the designated tasks for the basin, like advising TMDL writers of community concerns, and we recommend specific actions needed to control those pollutant sources on the river. In addition to serving as the WAG, the Lower Boise Watershed Council is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, so that gives us more authority. We can raise money to fund water quality improvement activities in the watershed, and you'll be able to hear a little more about this in a few minutes. We are governed by a board that is made up of watershed stakeholders, and our board contains members that represent local government, agricultural, flood control, stormwater industry, and environmental interests. So I would encourage you to take a look at our website, lowerboisewatershedcouncil.com, and in order to learn more about us. Thanks.
Today we have 4 speakers talking about how farmers clean up the Boise River. You may realize that almost a quarter of the land in the Lower Boise is cropland. The farming industry, of course, is a very important, not just of Idaho's economy, but certainly here in the Canyon and Ada County in the Lower Boise River. And farmers have certainly an interest in good water quality, as well as efficient irrigation and efficient drainage, and protecting their soil health. I've been fortunate to have been on some of the tours of some of the projects you're going to hear about today, and it's just fascinating. And if you have an opportunity sometime when we're past the virus, I hope that you'd take a chance to go down. If you've never visited any of the farms down the valley, you'll find it a wonderful experience, and you meet some great people. So our first speaker is Dan Steenson, who is the council director of the Lower Boise Watershed. Ooh, there we go. And I'll hand it off to you, Dan.
Thanks, Kathy. Yeah, my name is Dan Steenson, And as mentioned, I'm a director representing the agriculture sector on the Lower Boise Watershed Council. I'm an attorney, and our firm represents multiple irrigation districts, canal companies, drainage districts, flood control districts in the valley. So I'm going to give an overview of our implementation plan efforts over time. And to do that, share with you a screen that you should be seeing now. Could someone confirm that it's being seen?
Yes, it looks
Okay.
great. Looks great,
So
Jan, thank you.
What you're seeing now is the Boise Valley in 1990 when I moved here. And it was quite a different place. You can see the predominance of agricultural irrigated fields in the valley. Then if you move forward in time to the year 2000, the year after the sediment TMDL was developed, you can see increasing development in the municipal urban areas. And of course, by today, the development is dramatically increased and accelerating over time. And so one of the things that we are focusing on is to try to get a handle on the extent of development that has occurred and is continuing to occur. And as an example of that, I'm going to show you an area of very rapid development in a portion of the Mason Creek subwatershed. Mason Creek is shown here in blue. This is that corridor between Meridian and Nampa, and a sub-drainage of the Mason Creek drainage that drains through a drain called Purdom Gulch. And what you can see here is in light purple, the acres that are currently in agriculture today. And what you can see in orange are the number of acres or the areas that have developed since 2016. And in red, you can see areas that are in the process of being developed now. So the number of agricultural acres in the valley is rapidly declining. Certainly, in Ada County and Eastern Canyon County, and moving west as the municipalities spread out across the valley. Another example of this in the Mason Creek subwatershed drainage is this area here, this segment that is down gradient of the Caldwell Highline Canal. Again, you can see in orange acres that have developed since 2016. We and DEQ went through a process of delineating in 2016 all of the agricultural irrigated fields in the valley that were either flood irrigated or pressure irrigated. And so these orange areas were delineated in 2016 as in agriculture. And today, as you can see, are developing. So development is really the dominant factor in setting the stage for agricultural BMP implementation in the valley. So as far as BMP implementation occurs, it occurs really in two ways in our valley, through on-farm projects and through watershed scale projects. So what you're seeing now is an image with place marks of various projects that have been implemented with 319 grant funding through the Lower Boise Watershed Council or state agricultural BMP funding. The implementation has been largely focused in the Canyon County area. You're going to hear from Bob McKellip in a little bit about projects that he's been involved in closer to Ada County. But most of our projects have been focused in Canyon County because these lands have the most direct impact on the Boise River sediment loading and the target we're trying to achieve at Parma. And this focus has also been a result of working with the Canyon Soil and Water Conservation District. You're going to hear from Stan Haye about a few of the projects that we've been most recently involved with. and with the NRCS, and their implementation focus has been in this area as well. In addition to these on-farm projects, several of what we call watershed scale projects have been implemented. So what you can see are place marks of projects that treat drain flows or creek flows to effectively reduce loading from entire sub-watershed areas. Dixie Drain, for example, here, and I'm sure you're all familiar with it and have heard about it. This facility, constructed and operated by the city of Boise, treats a significant portion of the Dixie Drain flow, taking water in, as you can see here, through the facility and returning it back after treatment, significantly reducing sediment and phosphorus loading. And there are, as I've indicated, several other projects that are similar in nature, treating large volumes of water and thereby effectively treating large land areas to reduce sediment and phosphorus. Another recent example is on the Mill Slough, a project that went in partnership with the city of Middleton to put in a structure to settle out sediment and phosphorus that is then removed from this drainage annually to reduce loading from the Mill Slough. So these are the two types of projects that have been implemented over time. The most recent project that that is currently being undertaken is a demonstration project on Mason Creek, which you can see here in blue. A demonstration project to install what the people who are engaged in the project call activated wetlands, to determine the extent to which those wetlands can in particular reduce phosphorus loading from Mason Creek. They'll divert water here, treat it here, and over the course of a year or two, collect data to determine the extent of the reduction. And then the second component of the project is to determine, now that the Senate and the House of the Idaho legislature has passed legislation authorizing water quality trading, to determine whether and how the reductions can become credits for water quality trading, credits that can be acquired by municipalities or other point sources to be incorporated as credits in their permits. If this is successful, their larger ultimate plan is a very ambitious set of activated treatment ponds, as you can see here, that would, as the other watershed projects do, have the effect of treating a very large land area. But we've got to keep in mind that the agricultural acres in, for example, Mason Creek, is declining on nearly a weekly basis. So we have to be more and more strategic about the types of projects that we implement to effectively use the funds that we have available to us. And I think, Kathy, with the time allotted, I'll stop there and turn it over to Stan. I'd add that USGS monitoring data is showing improving trends in phosphorus, substantially declining trends in phosphorus over the last 10 years that correspond to both development trends that I've talked about and the extent of implementation that we've been engaged in over that period of time. So the program has been very successful and we're achieving very positive results.
I would like to add, before we go to the next speaker, that to Stan, that if you have any questions, would you please put them in the chat box, and we'll be monitoring those and getting your answers possibly at the end. So we're going to hand it off to Stan.
Okay, my name is Stan Haye. I have a background in, I've both ranched and farmed most of my life, and also I worked for the Twin Falls Canal Company years ago for about 13 years. Got on with NRCS for 13 or 14 years. And then most recently, I started working for Canyon County Soil and Water Conservation District as a soil conservation technician. today I'm just going to present some 319 projects, which include the purchases of 2 no-till drills. And if you want to, so Canyon County Soil and Water Conservation District purchased a no-till drill last summer. In August, it was finalized along with the Watson no-till drill. And those were implemented last summer, starting about August, when both drills were used. And in that, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the no-till drill usage. One producer, in fact, went in and planted a variety, about 3 different varieties for cover crop, about August, right after the grain was harvested. And he planted some peas, turnips, and some hairy veg. And then later on in the fall, he was able to pasture that. And then I talked to him about what his plans are, and he's planning on going back in this spring here shortly and doing chisel plow and then planting corn right behind that. So the savings economically to him, if he were to plow, that would be $35 to $40 an acre if he custom hired it. And then he figures he's got another $15 to $20 in savings from the lack of going over and over in that field, maybe possibly as many as 9 passes. I also have a map of the no-till drill, and then I wanted to show some of the 319 projects, and I'm calling them Indian Creek, U-Stick Road towards Wilder, and out on Galloway Road. And that one drains about a mile downstream from Middleton from the Mill Slough. Anyway, if we can go to the next slide. Here's the purchase of the no-till drill from the Canyon County Soil and Water Conservation District. It was a 12-foot Great Plains drill. It really is useful for a variety of things. Many people have used it on pastures, and then we had some recently plant peas this spring. Sims, for instance, over the fruit farm area, they used it in between some of their orchards, and they also used it in places where they needed to grow a crop up quickly. They come in and graze it last fall, and then they got to retain their soil through the winter, so the runoff didn't hit it or wind erosion. Anyway, let's go to the next slide. And this is the Watson John Deere drill, and it is pretty much in Parma area. 319 grant helped them purchase this drill, and they're using it on their organic farms in both Adrian, the Vale area, and over in Parma and Notice. We can go to the next slide. So Canyon County total, I was expecting a little more acreage out of it this year. This is from August of 2020 till within this last week. We've got a total of about 693 acres that have been used, and you can see that we planted a variety of different crops. Some people have used it for triticale. They'll come in this spring, take it out, and then plant corn behind it. The Watson drill is about 600 acres right now. Through the people contacting me for the drill usage, it wound up I actually had them go to Watson's in a few areas over in the Notice Parma area, because we were kind of using it in Canyon County closer to Wilder in that area. Go ahead, and here's a map I came up with acres and different places where we've spread out those no-till drills. And you can see we covered all the way from Marsing all the way north to almost Weiser in that New Plymouth area, clear over into Emmett. Well, to the west side of Emmett, there is, then also you can see the Watson drill focused more kind of north over into Nissa and that area, and then down into Parma, and then over to Notice quite a bit. And same with the Canyon County's no-till drill. We kind of overlapped in a few places, but then most of ours was concentrated on the south side of the Boise River. And you can see the acreage there, clear out in Ada County. We use it in several places where normally the people use the Ada County's drills, but we had requests from 2 or 3 people over in that area to get our drill too. So here's this slide here shows fields just north and east of Notice. And if you notice, I took a picture of the south side of that bank and then back towards the north, and you can see that the wastewater normally comes off of those fields and goes right down into this slough here. And these pictures were taken late last fall, so throughout the winter, if there hadn't been a cover crop in there, we would have a lot of sedimentation going into this. So I just wanted to show you what benefits the no-till drill does, not only for the soil health, but for water quality and sediment reduction. Next slide, please. This is part of what Watson was doing, and I've been kind of keeping track. Those pictures of those 2 fields were over on the east side of this photo right there. You can see that area. All of those are located just north of the Boise River, and all those drain right down through there within 2 or 3 miles into the river. So you can see we've helped reduce a lot of some of those crops probably have anywhere from 1 to 4 tons per acre. And if we can reduce some of that in the wintertime, it really benefits with this no-till drill. Next slide, please. Okay, gravity to sprinkler conversions. We had contracted with 3 different projects this year in 2020, and then we started them late last fall, and some were into the winter of 2021. And we've completed all 3 of those, and they're right now the producers are in the process of getting paid on them. There's a total of 248 acres. Basically it was 6 center pivots, and we averaged about 5 tons per acre. I used sisal on these and the current crop rotations along with slope. Slope is a lot of the main factor that causes, along with crops such as corn and beets and those things. Next slide, please. This picture is taking on like what I just called was Galloway. This producer is actually Vandenberg's, which was off. This slide was taken north of the Galloway Road there, about 3.5 miles north of Middleton. You can see during the winter runoff, a lot of sediment builds up in this area here. Along with the next slide, will show you kind of gully area, and they were cleaning these sediment basins out every year to get rid of the sediment that was piling in there, and then they were putting it back on the field. Go ahead to the next slide. This is a before. This was the same picture, only I took a different angle. And then after, this was the second picture was taken last week after they put 4 center pivots on 197 acres out here. And then they were able to farm over the top of this gully here. And right there alone, it's going to save quite a bit by having a conversion to sprinkler and not have runoff coming from gravity. They were using siphon tubes and gated pipe previous to this. Go ahead. Just basically, the first project was in Indian Creek, and you can see the savings is about 6.2 tons per acre. The Snake River area was a savings about 2.84, somewhere around that ton per acre on reduction of sediment. The Boise River project, which is the one I just showed you, we're right around 5.98 to 6 tons per acre. And I'll go to the next slide. And since 2010 NRCS, I've worked closely with Tate and many of the other soil conservationists in Canyon County and other counties, but Tate wanted me to go ahead and put this in here. Since 2010, NRCS has implemented projects for approximately 2,275 acres in the sub-watershed within the lower Boise watershed. The average sediment transport was eliminated, averaged 4 tons per acre. So he estimated the tonnage reduction was about 9,098 tons of sediment per year, kept on the fields, not entering the waterways. The phosphorus and sediment estimate was about 18,197 pounds per year. And NRCS had funded 2.13 million in cost shares, assisting producers over the time frame on this total. So you can see that from 2010 to 2020, basically this was composed up till December of last year, that there's been quite a bit of money spent in the area through Natural Resource Conservation Service. So I think that's about all the slides I have. I do want to let you know that we have about 6 more projects proposed this year. 2 of them we just funded a week ago. One of them is in that Parma area, Boise drainage, and another one it was funded around Lake Lowell, and the drainage there dumps within a 1/3 of a mile to Lake Lowell. Some of the other projects we're looking at is in the Wilder area, south of Parma on the Boise River, directly to it, and then again north of Parma on the Boise River. We've been going from gravity to sprinkler conversion, and also we're looking at projects with gravity to drip conversion to try to help implement these practices on this. And I think that's about all I have. I'll over to, go ahead.
Thanks, Stan. Stan, we have a couple of questions, particularly about the drills, that this would be a
Sure.
good time to ask. One
Okay.
was, are the drills leased out to farmers?
Yes, the drill for both actually Watson and our drill leases out for $13 an acre. And what I do is usually everybody goes through me, they call me, I send them an application for a lease agreement. And then we take a $500 deposit to make sure everything comes back good. If you're over 20 acres, we charge you the $13 per acre. If you're under that, we charge a flat fee of $250. Our drill is pretty easy it's mobile, it's only 12 foot, so people can hook onto it with a pickup, usually a 3/4 ton or a 1 ton pickup, pull it down the road. Watson's drill is a 15-footer. It's quite a bit larger, but people will transport it on a trailer. Is there any more questions on the drill?
Yeah, and just Ada County also has a similar program, am I correct?
Yes, and they've been doing that for years, and they have had real good success with it. I think we've just overlapped on some people. I think they have a 15-footer and maybe an 8-footer, and occasionally the 8-footer is a little too small, but yet the 15-footer is too large for some people to go get a trailer and go pick it up, where the 12-footer seems to kind of help out a little bit that way.
Well, that comes into another question we had from Haye Minder. Are there any plans to get smaller no-till drills for smaller spaces, like planting cover crops in vineyards or orchards?
Well, we haven't discussed that, but I was going through the orchards yesterday over there at Sims, and I was kind of thinking about that myself, because they're pretty small. I think you would have to look at more like a 6-footer, especially when it's got overhead cover on it. So that's good. Good question.
Thanks, Dan. We have another question in the chat that I'm going to hold. That's probably for Dan till after we get through all the speakers, because I want to be sure and give our next speaker, who is Tom Johnston, a chance. He's a board member of the Farmers Co-operative Ditch Company that was incorporated in 1902. And he also has farmed in the area for decades. So I'll hand it off to you, Tom.
Well, there I am. Okay. You can hear me, I take it.
You sound great.
Thank you. Like she said, my name's Tom Johnston, and she already stole my my thunder. Our company was founded in 1902, and our family's been here at least that long or longer. And anyway, we have a company that is a privately held irrigation company. We irrigate about 15,000 acres, and our diversion starts at the city of Caldwell, and it meanders about 35 miles of canal. It goes west and north and ends up just on the east side of the Snake River, where at the other side of Nyssa, Oregon. We've been here a long time, and part of our issues that we deal with is that we now have the Black Canyon Irrigation District that was completed in the early 40s, and it's north of us, and all of their runoff. It's a much larger project. They have about 35,000 acres, I believe they irrigate, and much of that runs off in drainage after they irrigate their land in our canal, which is two benefits. One is it's wonderful that we get the additional water for our shareholders, but we have additional sediments and phosphorus, and our water quality is continuing to be a problem. Agricultural is changing all the time with different irrigation projects, concrete ditches, sprinkler pipe, drip irrigations, gated pipe, all of the above. And our shareholders, our water users are finding it difficult with the high quality and high amount of sediment that the canal is carrying. So our board of directors, and I'm one of them, we decided to address our water quality and try to clean it up. So especially drip irrigation, that's become very popular for irrigators, could be more suitable for those of our shareholders that are downstream far enough to have high sediment deposits. So we've located a piece of property north of Parma, which actually is about 2/3 of the way through our canal system. And we found a parcel, you can see on the screen. This is a small section of it, but it was 8.8 acres that we leased from a private landowner. And it was just a piece of pasture wasteland almost. And we rented from them, and we started, we applied to the NRCS for a sediment basin so that we would take the water and recapture it, and we could deposit our sediments and our phosphorus in this and clean it annually. Next slide. We started, we got our project approved, and we built the project and got it completed within a year. And our irrigation season of 2019 was the first year that we were able to use it. Next photo. You can see that we, it was about $1 million application. Half of the $1 million, 500,000, was used to build and put the sediment basin active, and the other $500,000 went to our shareholders, water users downstream of our project that would have the ability to apply for best management practices in improving their irrigation systems, like pivots and drip irrigation and all the above. Go on down, you can see we're standing on the bridge. The project itself, about 8 acres was put into a sediment basin. We diverted the entire canal into the basin. The object is to slow the water down, widen it out the stream, give it the opportunity to deposit all the sediments, which include the phosphorus, and then go back into the canal at the end of the sediment basin. This is our first day when we were diverting the water out of our main canal into the basin. The next slide up, we're doing some measurement, and you can see that behind the gentleman is the basin itself after it has been filled up. It's pretty good size for 8 acres. And then at the end of the season, when we turn the water out of the canal, you can see here that the basin itself is full of mud, and it was for quite a while. About 2/3 of the entire basin was far full of sediment than we ever expected. It left the last third of the basin still available to catch some of the sediments. This is the first day when we turned it into the basin to give you an idea how deep it was and how big an area it is. So anyway, we went on and we then had another learning curve, and that was how to clean the project. And so after we had our irrigation season, you can see on these graphs that it tells you how much sediment that we collected. There were approximately 10.14 tons of sediment that we removed. This graph shows you how much entered in blue. And oh, this is the one for phosphorus. I beg your pardon. Phosphorus is first. This is what we decided was captured in the sediment basin, 10.14 tons. In blue is what enters into the sediment basin, and in orange is what was retained. And so then sediment is the next one. Excuse me, it's what entered is in orange and what is retained is in red. And we estimated about 10,560 tons were retained. Cleaning the basin has been a learning curve. We've had to have more equipment and everything else to be able to get it cleaned up, but it's wonderful topsoil. There's a market for topsoil. Also, we have land within our area that people want the topsoil to help put their land on better grade, improve their farming, and we have a lot of places for it to go. It's very close to our basin, and it's been a real improvement. So that's about all I have. If there's any questions, I would be more than happy to answer. We are so impressed, and our irrigators are so supportive, but we're particularly thankful for all the partners that we had, NRCS, Soil Conservation, Watershed groups, Water Resource Board, everybody that's been so supportive, and we are encouraged to possibly do a duplicate sediment basin about 5 miles upstream from where this one is, that would even improve our water quality better. Our irrigators downstream are thrilled to death that the quality of their water, their pumps never fail, they never backwash their drip systems. It's just been a tremendous asset to our company. Is there anything that I can answer?
We don't have any questions in the chat at the moment, Tom, but let's see, after people think about it, there might be something yet. So,
well, thank you. I hope I explained it. The pictures didn't do it justice. Any and all of you are welcome to come and see it firsthand. There's nothing like a firsthand experience and a visual to give you an idea of just how spectacular this project has been and how important it is to us for the ability to clean up the water.
Tom's right. I've been on a couple of tours, one when it was in construction and then when it was operational, Tom, and it's impressive to see, and it's unique, I think, in the valley. Is that true? You're unique for Idaho, perhaps?
No, I believe you're correct. It's been done many times on a smaller version. It's just that we just happened to have a location that worked. We have another location that's almost a carbon copy of what we did originally, and we look forward to maybe getting that done as well. So you're right. I think on the scale of things and the amount of water that we have processed, it's been very beneficial.
Thank you, Tom. Our next speaker is Bob McKellip. Bob and his wife Susan have been farming in Southwest Idaho for the past 38 years. They raise a variety of crops, but today I think he's going to be talking about mint. Bob is on the Canyon County Soil Conservation District Board, and he is also on the board of the Idaho Mint Growers Association, and is the Idaho representative on the Mint Industry Research Council. And I've also toured one of these projects, and it's a great pleasure to stand next to a mint field when it's green and it just smells wonderful. But thanks for participating, Bob. You ready to go?
I'm ready to go. So anyway, this is a 5-mile creek that runs through ground that I farm. And when I started this project to put drip irrigation in on mint, our wastewater drains directly into this this creek, or drain ditch they call it now, but it's 10-mile creek. And so this is kind of how we got started with the project. And then we envisioned how we could have some other benefits besides just cleaning up the water. So if you go to the next slide. Are you there, Liz? Anyway.
Yeah. Is this what you want?
Yeah, just go to the next slide if you could.
At the sugar beets? What do you
That'd
see?
be fine. That'd be fine.
What? So let's just get this straight. So I've got the tour up on the screen now.
Right.
Is that what you're seeing?
No, I don't see that. I just see the picture of the 5-mile drain.
Okay. So I've never done this before, so let me just do it this way.
Okay.
Is it up now?
No, I see your name.
Okay, this is our comedy interlude as Liz tries to, oh, there we go. Right, Liz tries to do this.
There you go. Okay. Anyway, also, we put the project in, we kind of used it as a learning tool. As mentioned, I'm on the Canyon County Soil Conservation Board. And so not only did we put the project in, but I think it was a good educational tool and had a lot of people on different tours come look at it. At that time, I was the first person to put drip in on mint, so it was kind of experimental. Then I used it on sugar beets. There's some other crops like onions and different crops that there's the drip irrigations have been used a lot on, but hadn't been on these particular crops at that time. This is back in 2012. If you want to go to the PowerPoint presentation, Liz. There's a crop of sugar. Yeah, there's some sugar beets that we had in on drip irrigation a few years ago. It worked really well. And all these fields, there was no sediment at all that ran off of the field, any wastewater. So it raised a good crop. But we're gonna, James Eller, he did this PowerPoint presentation. This is, and so I'm going to kind of use some of the material that he had. This particular field right here is, if you look at to the left, both these fields are the same field, but if you look at the left, this field right here was in mint before there was drip irrigation put in it. And you can see how uneven the soil is. And if you look at kind of the top left corner, you see that soil, that's a gravel bar there, and it hardly ever grows into crops. And then if you look at the right, after we put the drip irrigation in, over on the other side there, that's the same field. But with the drip irrigation, the field was perfectly uniform. And it's hard to believe that the same field could have that much difference just by putting the drip in, because you have the different soil types. If you look at the surrounding fields, at the bottom of the picture there, you can see in green there, you can see how that field there is uneven. So our soil type, most of these fields have been leveled to furrow irrigate. And when they do that, sometimes they exchange the soil or strip off the top soil. And this is when they were leveled, 50, 75 years ago, they didn't have big equipment and they just kind of moved soil around. And so a lot of these fields are good soil, but it's not they didn't blend it very well. If you look at the field that is to the left of the, well, both these, the same picture, that is where the 5 mile drain is. And the water from this field drains into the 5 mile drain. If you want to go to the front part of the, this is the last slide on the PowerPoint. If you want to go to the first part of it, I can give you, Liz, I can tell you some of the stuff that we did. I go all the way back. Yeah, there you go. So go to the next slide. This is James Eller's PowerPoint presentation that I'm just using. There's a picture of that same field. We did the project in 2012, and it was funded partly by the 319 project, and then I funded the rest. And then also we had some more additional money that's not included here that came in later. Toro Tape, they furnished some material, and then Nelson Sprinkler Valves, they furnished some new type of valves that they were just introducing, and so they helped pay for those also. You go to the next slide. This particular field, there are 37 acres. You can kind of see James outlined here some of the concerns we had about this particular field. It was a 37-acre field, and he was estimating there was 124 tons of soil that was lost a year from the standard furrow irrigation. And so we figured that this would be a pretty good field. The field is only a 2% grade, so it's fairly flat, but even a field that flat still has a fair amount of erosion. Also, what we're looking at is water savings, because with the drip irrigation, we could use quite a bit less water than we would a furrow, which allowed me to use that additional water on other fields because we only have so much water, and so we typically have to raise some low water use crops so we can raise high water use crops on different fields. Can you go to the next one, Liz? James estimated that with siphon tubes, we were only about 60% efficient, and that we were probably running on average about 3.5 tons of erosion or soil sediment off the field. And as I mentioned earlier, the wastewater or tailwater drained directly into the 5 Mile Creek, which in turn drains directly into the Boise River. Can you go to the next one? These are some of the goals that I had when we started the project. Is improve water quality, reduce tillage, increase yield, reduce nutrient inputs, and I'll explain some of those in the next few slides. Reduce pesticide to a certain percent. You can go to the next one. I got help from the NRCS and the Canyon Kyle Soil Conservation District. And also I had a lot of help from, at that time, I was working with Clearwater Irrigation, and they gave me an awful lot of assistance. You can go next one. Some of the things we wanted to do is improve, that I did was improve soil, improve the soil, and the drip irrigation improved water efficiency and reduced erosion. And the ultimate goal was to save water, reduce erosion, and hopefully increase our yields, which we did. Go to the next one. Some of the benefits that we got from this particular project was there's no sediment or nutrients that entered the 5 Mile Creek. We ended up reducing our water close to 60% on this particular field, which has allowed us to have more water on some other fields. Eliminated nutrient runoff, and we improved the soil quality because we weren't tilling the ground as much. The next one. Our yield, we estimated our yield probably went up close to 20%. On the nitrogen, it was amazing on the nitrogen. we've always pulled soil petioles and soil samples on all of our crops that we raise. And so we just put on what we need. We kind of like to, I use the term spoon feed. And so we just put on as we need it based on petioles and soil samples. In this particular field, we went from using 300 units of nitrogen to 100 units of nitrogen and still increased our yield by 20%. On this particular field, it was actually, we left this particular field in for 8 years. And typically we get about 4 years, some 5 years on furrow irrigation, but the plants was so much healthier and less disease because we don't have to cultivate the fields to clean up corrugates and water running through the field. It doesn't spread the disease in the field, which gets the mint. Of course, we had reduced tillage because we didn't need the drip. Mint is a perennial crop, so we usually leave it in 4 or 5 years. And so if we don't have to clean corrugates and stuff, we don't have to take equipment into the field. And the next one. These are some of the public benefits that James came up with. He talked about clean water, less nutrient contamination in the groundwater and surface water, decrease for irrigation water. In my case, it just allowed me to use water in other areas, so I could use, instead of raising wheat, I could, for example, raise sugar beets because I had more water because I saved water on this particular farm. Plus it, well, the last one, provide business for local companies, definitely, because drip irrigation is expensive to put in, so it definitely helped them. Next one. These are some of the costs that James came up with. And this is, if you look at the green, this is kind of based on the 37 acres as a whole. And so if you look at fertilizer, just at that time, this is back in 2012 and 13, so fertilizers wasn't as expensive as it is today, but still, even back then on that field, it was $3,700 that he estimated that I saved because of the drip versus the method we were using before, furrow irrigation. Pumping costs a little bit, but if you look at the tillage, it offset the pumping costs. We're on furrow irrigation. Our water comes from pioneer irrigation, so it's all gravity. So we have no pumping cost unless we pressurize the water, you know, either in sprinklers or drip. But in this case, the tillage savings almost offset the cost of the pumping. As I mentioned, the mint stand, it went from 4 or 5 years to 8 years. So that was quite a savings because I didn't have to replant the crop or rotate to other crops. Yield at that time in 1 year was close to, if you figure the 20% increase at that time, that was almost $11,000. And that's basically net profit in my pocket because it's on the yield side, and it didn't cost that much more to get that additional yield. So he estimated that the project would pay for itself without any cost share in less than 3 years, and with the cost share, it paid itself in a little over a year. So the project would pay for itself either way, whether it had cost share or without cost share. And that's what I was kind of looking at is I kind of view the money as like these 319 projects. You can't fund every single project, but if you can fund some of them, it kind of acts as seed money for demonstration. Because in my case, we'd never done it on mint before. By doing this project, I know in the future, even if there isn't a cost share program available, that it still pays for itself. And otherwise, farmers and growers are hesitant in trying new practices because of the unknowns. Here's the next one. These are some of the partners that was involved in this project. You go to the next one. Quick overview of how we did it. This is mint when it was planted the first year. It's planted in rows. You can see here we farm clear up to the end of the field, so we got a little more work in this project than we planned on, but I didn't want to have waste areas at the end of the field, so we trenched them and laid our drip tape in the furrows at the end of the field. The drip tape goes clear through the field. Can you go to the next one? This is, at that time, there was no equipment built for putting drip tape on mint, so we kind of used parts and pieces of what we had to build a cultivator or to put the tape into the ground. Can you go to the next one? This is, you can see the cement ditch right next to it. We obviously didn't want to tear out our cement ditch, and so we did everything temporary. If we were putting a drip irrigation system in permanently, we would probably be burying all the main lines and such. But in this case, we didn't want to put it in permanent because we switched back and forth from the furrow irrigation to the drip on our fields. Next one. This is kind of after it's all put in. You can see the mint's just starting to come up. We haven't started irrigating yet. This is just when we were all ready to start irrigating. The next one. This is the valving system. The system is all controlled, so it automatically changes itself. We can set the drip up so that in this particular field there was five sets, and it automatically just changes. So it saves a huge amount of labor because you can program it to how often you want to water it, and it just comes on automatically and turns to the left. You can see the main line, and to the right is the sub lines where the drip irrigation actually hooks to. The next one. This is our control panel, our sand media filters. Our water is fairly clean, but is still irrigation water that comes out of the canals, and so there's some sediment and contaminant. We're fairly fortunate. We're at the top end of Pioneer Irrigation's delivery point, so we don't have a lot of sediment. If you get at the tail end, closer to Wilder and stuff, the water is quite, has a lot of sediment in it, and so we would probably need more filters, more sand medium filters if we were at the other end of the irrigation system. This is our pumping station set right over the existing cement ditch that we just pumped right out of. Next one. This is one thing that's on all drip irrigations. You have to have a way to flush out your drip lines because over time they'll get sediment and algae and stuff in them, and so they have to be flushed out occasionally. And so later on we changed this to a manifold so we didn't have so many little valves. But on this particular field, there was about 800 of these little valves, and it took a long time to open every one of those little valves and close them. And so we changed it in later years, but this was the way we put it in originally. The next one. This is a mint field as it gets going to getting established. Next one. This is a field that's it's been irrigated. You can see right in front of me there's kind of a blank area. You can see how moist the ground is just from the drip irrigation. It was amazing how the ground would just stay moist all the time. We irrigated, depending on the heat units and how hot it was, usually every other day. We had 5 sets, and we'd just come on, water for 2 or 3 hours, and it would shut off and rotate to the next set. Next slide. This is where we harvest. The drip irrigation, we installed it underneath the ground. It was about, in this particular case, it was about 4 inches underneath the ground. And so we could use our regular harvest equipment and harvest right over the top of the drip tape. And whereas this is a perennial crop, we left it in for multiple years, and that way we didn't disturb the drip tape that was underneath the crop. Next one. Here's back to kind of where we started at. If you look at that picture again, you can really see the difference in the types of soil. And the next slide. And there's an aerial shot. If you look kind of around the field right to the left, you can see how uneven the field is. And even the field below us, which is nice and uniform. But even that's, I also raised sod, but even in the sod under sprinklers, you can still see the ground difference, not as much as the furrow irrigated, but you can still see it. But if you look at the field right in the center under drip irrigation, it's almost perfect. And if you look to the south, which is the next field up, you can see that if you look out across the fields, you can see the irregularities. And that's partly furrow irrigation. Different soil types absorb different amount of water. And so it's hard to get uniform water application under furrow irrigation. Go to the next slide. And there you can kind of see them side by side. It's really stark. It's hard to believe that that's the same field in the same crop. And then Liz, if you want to go to the last picture, I have one sign to kind of thank you for everyone that helped me. There's one more picture if you have it. It's on a sign. Yeah, right there. Anyway, these are, as I said at the start of the presentation, I kind of use this as an educational tool on the Canyon County Soil District board. And so I had this on the field for several years. And these are the different groups that helped us. My bank, D.L. Evans, they paid for the sign. And so anyway, I was wanting to thank everyone that helped me with the project. So.
Well, thank you, Bob. One of the lessons learned from, I think, these presentations is the importance for the success of implementation of best practices is that collaborative process of people helping each other out, learning from each other's mistakes. I really appreciate you all speaking today. We do have a question, getting back probably to Dan, about the urbanization. And I have a specific question, and then I have kind of a follow-up question about a bigger picture. So Pat Hedrick asked, has Idaho or any of the counties given thought to decreasing bluegrass and new developments and encouraging native and drought-tolerant planting? So is there a place for that, say with the lower Basin watershed or somewhere else?
Not to my knowledge. There are others participating in the meeting who might know otherwise, but I don't believe, there's certainly no statute that addresses that concept. And to my knowledge, the planning and zoning commissions, the local development service offices, they are not requiring a certain type of grass to be used in new subdivision developments.
Is there a place there for the conservation districts to be working with developers? Have you seen anything like that?
Well, the conservation districts work with farmers. And so that would not be within their charge.
Okay. Well, the loss of farmland is a big issue, and you've brought up, Dan, for many reasons. And Dan, you brought up the ramifications for water quality in particular. Do you want to expand upon that? I mean, at one time I was seeing a lot of activities looking at what's been done in other states to help preserve farmland, but is there anything going on now?
Well, Canyon County has considered different ways in which their comprehensive plan and their zoning ordinance could either encourage retention of agricultural land or steer development to continue to be from urban areas out, but it's a difficult proposition to implement ordinances which restrict a landowner's right to sell their land to a willing buyer. That's a very difficult proposition. So there is quite a bit of concern about the loss of agricultural land in the valley. As far as water quality is concerned, it's very interesting. And I didn't delve into the important aspect of water quality planning, that is understanding the hydrology of the watershed and each sub-watershed. And so as lands develop, surface return flows decline substantially to the drainages. Urbanized areas are required to retain or detain their stormwater. And so drain flows become less influenced by surface return flows. And as the shallow aquifer declines, drain flows also decline. And as lands develop, there are also increasing numbers of pump stations that are installed in the drains to service new subdivisions. And so what the irrigation districts are finding that they're having to do is to supplement the drain flows with what we call live flow from the delivery system. So these drainages and these drains that were constructed by the Bureau in the early part of the 20th century for these to provide drainage are becoming more and more components of the water delivery system. So these drainages with development are transforming hydrologically as well as in terms of the loads of sediment and phosphorus they're carrying.
So we do have a couple more questions if we can get to them. And we had a question probably to Bob on a little bit more on the maintenance. Do you have pinched clog tapes that need to be dug up, clog tapes leaving a dry patch? Do you spend a lot of time kind of checking the system to see if parts are messing up?
Yeah, I can answer that question. On the permanent drip, that is more of an issue because one thing is like gophers and mice and stuff, they can cause havoc. So we have to have a really good program of keeping, especially the gophers, out of the field, because the gopher, they just really cause havoc on drip tape. Of course, they cause havoc if you get them in your canal system too. But so yes, one thing we discovered, you have to have really good hygiene, I guess you'd call it, with the drip. We flush our lines regularly. We treat them, make sure we don't get any algae in the system. And we also have to be careful when we have equipment out in the field that we don't damage the tape. So we've changed some of our cultural practices some just for that reason. A lot of the onions and crops like that, they're just annual crops. And so the drip systems in those type of crops are usually just put in for 1 year and then it's taken back out. I don't think it's as much an issue for them because it's where they take it out of the ground every year. They're only using it for 1 year. I don't think they have as much problems, but in more permanent drip, like you would have in a vineyard or mint crop, or I suppose a hop yard or something, it's more of an issue is taking good care of the tape, because if you don't, it can really cause a lot of extra maintenance.
And let me just jump in, Bob, in the last minute, can you spend about 45 seconds talking about pesticide use reduction? Did you find that you were able to reduce that?
Yes, we did. Actually, a couple of was unexpected. When you started having like spider mites and some other insect problems, a lot of times it's because when the crop gets stressed, when it gets really hot, you have pests that they like to attack a stressed crop. And one thing that we really noticed, just compared to other mint fields that were beside it, where this field was always, the mint was always really healthy and was never stressed, especially for moisture. We never had to spray it for spider mites, and yet all of our other mint fields, we had to spray for spider mites. And that was kind of surprising because I never expected that. Also, where we aren't disturbing the soil, we don't have the weed pressure, because every time you disturb the soil, like making corrugates or something, you open it up and then weeds come in that disturbed soil. And so that was a savings too, because we didn't have as much weed pressure because we weren't disturbing the soil in this application anyhow.
You want to say our final words, Kathy?
Well, just thank you to our speakers, to Dan, Stan, Tom, and Bob. I really appreciate your participating, and we will have this online. So if people want to go back and look at it more carefully, it's available, or again, share it with people who couldn't participate today. And thank you all for calling into our Zoom. We appreciate your support at Bren, and we'll see you next time.
We'll be back on May 5th with our program featuring Clive Strong on the public trust doctrine and the Boise River. And remember, Idaho Gives starts on April 29th, and we would greatly appreciate your financial support. Thank you, everybody.